Coming up on show 386, pretty much all spy shots and some more spy shots. But there's more news than that. There's been a big acquisition. One big company buying another in the EV space. I'll let you know about that. Some spy shots, did I mention that? And also, Nissan Leaf ePlus pre-orders. How are they going? We found out. Those stories and many more on today's EV News Daily. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to Tuesday, the 12th of February's edition. My name is Martyn Lee. I've been through every EV story I can find today and picked out the ones that I think you need to know about. So if you're buying and selling a used car in the US, check out myev.com. I should mention, by the way, if maybe you're not ready to buy one, but maybe you are ready to spend the weekend in one. I mention Paul occasionally. Well, Paul runs electricmotoring.net. So we've got both options covered there. Buying, selling, and spending a weekend in one. He's got S's and X's and 3s. He's in the Chicago area, does it through Chiro. Check him out, electricmotoring.net, if you are interested. The people that support this show. Talking of the individuals who support this show, hello to a new executive producer of the podcast, Craig Rogers. Well, I've mentioned Craig's name before when he first signed up, but over the weekend, Craig went from producer to executive producer level. Sometimes people do decide to go up a level, and that's amazing, and thank you. And I really appreciate your support, and as always, blown away. And as I was walking through the studio door today, another one from Richard, who I've yet to fully get all the details from my Patreon account, so that will be tomorrow's mention. But for today, Craig Rogers, thank you so much. And with the regularity of Patreon supporters joining up, it seems also the same regularity of boats turning up in Europe, stacked full of Tesla Model 3s. Another one just turned up here in Europe, Glovis Cosmos. Now, Walter MacVane, who is on Twitter at EcoHeliGuy, Glovis Cosmos is entering the port of Zeebrugge. Now the question remains, 3,000 or more Teslas on the ship? Welcome to Europe, he says. And the Twitter user Tesla Stars says, while the Glovis Cosmos is in Zeebrugge unloading its cargo of Model 3, the Grand Aurora is showing up in the, is it Açores? Arrival is scheduled for Friday. So there's a ship currently unloading thousands of Teslas at the moment in Belgium, and then on Friday, in 3 days' time, there'll be another one. Wow, it's really impressive. In fact, I put a tweet out earlier today to say how impressive it was, and how the other car makers should be paying attention. And in some of those ones that have talked a very big game, and then when it came to actually delivering the cars, it's in the low hundreds. I should say that they should be slightly ashamed of themselves. But actually, a really good point from another one of the podcast supporters, actually, one of the gang, and that is Sasha. Now, Sasha Pallenberg raised the point about the EV revolution not really beginning until cars. There are lower cost cars. And also, once you get through that first initial, he said sort of 20,000 Teslas that have been on back order for a few years, work out the demand after that. And then, of course, after that, he says, then they might be in time for the $35,000 Model 3. All those different jigsaw pieces being put together. But a really good, insightful point there from Sasha on Twitter, by the way. We just don't know how this is going to play out, but you've got to put all those different variables in place. One of the interesting things about going forward, not this year or next year, but how we charge our cars in a slightly more medium term. I'm a little bit obsessed with wireless charging, and I know that Elon Musk in the past has said that it's folly. That's not his phrase, that's paraphrasing, but he doesn't necessarily believe in wireless charging. There's something about it which just makes sense. It's very sci-fi. Like, you pull up to your work car park, and they've had all these wireless charge pads buried underneath the asphalt, the concrete, whatever, and then you just pull up and get out of your car. And with companies like Hubject, who we've talked about recently, making all that progress in terms of billing just happening naturally, just charge your car and they'll work out, all the protocols are there to work out who you're charging with, how much it costs, and then you get billed at the end of the month. When you combine that with wireless charging, it just seems so frictionless. And now, a big acquisition in that space. Tricity is the company that specialises in contactless EV charging, and they have just acquired the other big name in the space, Qualcomm. Qualcomm's rival charging tech has been bought by Tricity. The two are keeping very quiet about the financial details. They did reveal, though, that Qualcomm will become a minority shareholder in Tricity as a result of this transaction, according to Engadget for our first story on the podcast today. Ultimately, it gives Tricity access to 1,500 new wireless battery charging patents and patent applications, which could see its contactless charging system become the EV standard. Well, I would say so. I mean, there's no credible alternative at the moment. An MIT spin-off years ago, Tricity system relies on a floor pad that radiates magnetic field and refuels cars, much the same as your mobile phone being placed down on a charging pad does. In 2016, they announced a prototype in partnership with GM that could be deployed in public parking spaces and garages, power up to 11 kilowatts. Now, Qualcomm and their Halo tech, they bought their Halo tech from the University of Auckland in 2011 as part of a multi-million-dollar deal. It currently forms the backbone of its dynamic electric vehicle charging test track. In other words, that's the tech that they're putting into roads to charge as you move. So there are two different roads, two different paths that the two companies are going down, but now under the name Tricity, all of that tech in one place. And it's really interesting. In the comments section of the Engadget article, I noticed one of the commenters, a guy called Peter F. Now, Peter F. said, "This is so dumb. You can accept the efficiency loss with a smartphone since it's little energy, but to charge a car with reduced efficiency causes a lot of energy waste." And that's the interesting thing, how people think about wireless charging. It took me 12 seconds of going on Tricity's website to find the page where they explain the most recent wireless technology is as efficient as plugging a cable in. People presume it's going to be like a 50% loss. You'll pay for 1 kilowatt hour of electricity or something, and only half will go in. It's almost all of it. It's incredibly efficient, and that's why just something in my tiny brain makes sense about wireless charging with autonomous cars, with people wanting to just park their car and have it charge and not be a thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be in your home garage, which I think is what a lot of people assume. No, if you're at home and it's overnight, there's nothing wrong with plugging in. It's all those other different ways of charging your personal transport, which in many ways people haven't even thought of yet, that makes me just so excited about it's almost endless possibilities, the problems that technology can fix. And often people like Peter, who can't see those problems to be fixed because he's too obsessed with putting negative comments online. You keep going, Peter. You keep going, my friend. You keep going, whining about things in the comment section of internet articles with absolutely no background knowledge, and you have a good day, sir. Let's get on to spy shots. Now, it's my goodness me. You wait ages for a new article about spy shots and 3 come along at once. We're a bit overrun today. But no, this is good. This is good, right? Because it means when EVs are cold weather testing, when you look at and look, I'm no expert in the automotive sector, but when they get to that stage, they are close, right? It's a nice problem to have. So, firstly, the Volkswagen ID Neo / the VW ID / the Volkswagen ID 1. Which some people think it's going to be called. The Neo is the internal code name at VW, and that if you rearrange the letters Neo, it's the VW ID 1. Whatever you want to call it, just don't call it a Golf. The Auto Express article says Volkswagen will launch the ID, codenamed Neo, with a range of 3 battery capacities to undercut the likes of the Kona Electric and the Kia e-Niro. Auto Express claimed today, I do want to try and clarify this, a starting price for the lowest battery pack of £22,500. That is, I've not done the actual calculations, put my finger in the air, about $28,000 I reckon. That's crazy cheap. As revealed by Auto Express towards the end of 2017, the very first ID will be 4.25 metres long, and that's come true. It's identical in size to a Golf, for instance. Oh, no, Auto Express, don't mention the G word. You can call it anything you like, but don't call it that. I mean, it is obviously exactly the same size as a Golf, and exactly the same style, pretty much exactly the same segment. Don't call it a Golf, it's not a Golf. It's the VW ID. The potential for extra cabin space can be seen in the proportions of the car in these new spy shot images done in really cold weather testing. I don't know exactly where these ones were, but you can see it's very snowy, putting the car through its paces, the windscreen, the back windows all covered in ice, so it's clearly been given a really hard time. The bonnet at the front, much shorter than the Golf. No! Don't call it that. It only needs to house the air conditioning system, says Auto Express, allowing for more space inside. Well, the Auto Express article continues. Boot space is also expected to measure up closely to the Golf. No! And expect around 380 litres with all 5 seats in place. It starts. So, the car that's not a Golf, don't call it a Golf, is 205 miles for the base level. And this is, I didn't realise this until recently. This is what's interesting. Whereas other car manufacturers do different sizes of battery packs, but everything else is the same. VW, with the ID Neo/ID/ID1, is different battery packs, but different motors. So the base battery pack is 48 kilowatt hours. That does 205 miles. And it's slow. I mean, it'll be quick by normal car standards, but by EV standards, it'll be the slowest one. If you want more performance, you've also got to go for a bigger battery. And that in many ways makes sense, because you can extract more power from a bigger battery and therefore have a bigger motor. 341 miles is the top spec. That's 62 kilowatt hours for the really fast one. Now, to me, 341 miles seems pie in the sky. If it's 260 to 280 real world from a 62 kilowatt hour battery pack, that would be normal. Anything getting nearer 300 is a Tesla Model 3 territory, and in that case, VW's engineers have done a blinder with the job. But we'll see real world testing. VW say they're going to do 100,000 of them next year. Zwickau is the plant producing them. 1,500 cars a day is the target by 2021. And there's going to be fewer options for the spec, by the way, fewer options. And that means more efficiency. Over-the-air updates are now confirmed. It's going to be permanently connected, permanent connectivity for the very first time in a VW car, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll put a link in the show notes. Hey, and we were talking as well about, at the beginning of the show, Model 3s versus the big German manufacturers, and exactly there, that price. If that price is correct, it seems too cheap. If that price is correct, well then, which one's going to win? I don't know. Let's find out. More spy shots, again from Auto Express, the new Renault Captur. It's a crossover. It's a plug-in hybrid this time. It's being developed ahead of going on sale very early 2020. I reckon this time next year, you'll be able to get your plug-in electric Captur from Renault. An all-new plug-in hybrid system and powertrain. It uses the Nissan, because you know the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance. It uses the Nissan 1.6 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine and then an electric drive system on top. The electric motor will do a dual role. It will provide the petrol engine with more power and torque, and also it will run on EV power alone. It comes with a plug. Good. If a car doesn't come with a plug, it can call itself a hybrid. But it's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, because you've got to put fossils inside it to make it move forwards and backwards. Oh, unless you live at the top of a very, very big hill, by the way. If you buy a brand new Toyota and live at the top of a very big hill, you can indeed make your very first journey on electric power alone as you roll down it. But when you want to go back up to the top, that's when you're going to have to start using a piston engine, and that's when it's not an EV. Final one, winter test driving has commenced with the BMW iNext. This is a lovely looking car. The SUV that's the iNext, BMW Group in Sweden, and I think somewhere called Arjeplog. You must laugh at the way I try and say these names in Sweden. It's the setting for vehicle testing in cold weather. The test drives in the camouflage iNext are on ice-covered lakes and snow-covered roads. It's all about putting the car through its paces. Again, you can't see a lot because of the camouflaging, but the point of it is, if they're doing this cold weather testing, they're testing the motor, the high-voltage battery, the cooling system, the eDrive energy management system that'll be in the BMW. What else? Just everything that's sub-zero, like the way that the regen works, the energy storage, how the motor transfers electricity from the battery to the road, how the aircon works, right? All of that, if that's being done, you know the car is coming. Series production, they say, from the BMW plant in Dingolfing in early 2021, and that seems realistic timing. Moving on to Nissan, I did tease this one. Nissan's received more than 3,000 pre-orders for the new 62 kilowatt-hour Leaf ePlus. They've called it the 3.0 limited edition Leaf ePlus, catchy. And they unveiled it a month ago, 3,000 pre-orders so far. That's 2/3 of the planned run of 5,000, which will be made in the very first trim. Says Mark Kane at Inside EVs. Nearly half of those pre-orders coming from one country. Oh, you got there before me. It's Norway. The Nissan Leaf is the best-selling car of any type in 2018. You didn't mishear me. I didn't say best-selling EV. The Leaf is the best-selling car, full stop. Well, on to the Model 3. Preparations to deliver the first batch of Tesla Model 3 vehicles to customers in China are well underway with the new arrival of Glovis Symphony at the port of Tianjin. According to Teslarati, the carrier entered the port on Monday, yesterday morning at 7 a.m. local time, after a 19-day journey from San Francisco's Port 80. After the Teslas were loaded on from the Fremont factory, a shipment of the performance Model 3s in Hong Kong was last month for test drives and display vehicles. I'll put a link to Teslarati in the show notes. And finally, back to InsideEVs.com and Wade Malone. While General Motors deliveries dropped in the US last year in 2018, the automaker saw a significant increase in global sales of their cars last year. The Chevy Bolt EV once again led GM's offerings. 27,918 units were delivered worldwide. The Bolt is a car that I've often said I don't talk about enough. We can't get it here. It's off my radar. Thank you to everybody who messages me to say, I own a Bolt. Please talk about it more. It's a great car. I agree. I should do. However, the Baojun E100/E200 is really impressive. It sells in China, and it did almost as many, over 25,000 sales last year alone. And the Volt, Chevy Volt, is just behind that at 25,000. Of course, unfortunately, production stops next month of that. Loads of people are gutted about that. They love the Volt. Volt owners particularly love driving the Volt. Now, Baojun, what's that? It's a jointly owned company owned by GM and SAIC. Until recently, if you want to do business in China, you had to partner up with a Chinese manufacturer. Tesla being the first company in the last few weeks being allowed 100% ownership of the Gigafactory 3. Until now, you had to do a deal with a domestic car maker to transfer that knowledge, if you like, from Western to Chinese markets. They recently expanded the availability. It's a tiny two-seater EV, and the recently launched E200 will replace the Baojun E100 on markets in China, and it sells really well, very low price, and loads of them on the roads. Thank you as always to myev.com for setting our question of the week. Had some good answers so far to this one. New question launched on Sunday. Are you part of an EV club or association? Either online, through Facebook, or even physically. You go to meetings. Like I went on Saturday to meet a lot of people in London. About 50 EV owners turned up. I wanted to spread the word about the podcast and chat to a few people there. And it was a really great day out. And it's the first time I've had the opportunity, the free time to go along to something like that, and I'm looking forward to certainly more this year. Do you think there's a reason for EV owners to be part of a community, a Facebook group, and a physical community to turn up to do meetings, to share knowledge, compared to gas cars, or just cars all the same, or EVs not a special case? Let me know if you want to chip in on that. My email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com. You can leave a comment on myev.com, on YouTube, Facebook comment sections. Thank you to the 180 patrons of the podcast. If you want to check out what it's all about, patreon.com, patreon.com/evnewsdaily. No pressure, obviously. And to our premium partners, as always, Phil Collins, the rock star turned solo pop star, does not support this show. Phil Roberts does. Phil owns Electric Future. EF.Energy does those big commercial installations, who in the UK, who has filled us in on the podcast before. Phil Collins doesn't support the podcast yet. Electricmotoring.net, mentioned them at the beginning, and Brad Crosby. Thank you, Brad, another premium partner of the podcast. Couldn't do it without any of our Patreon supporters. There are 384 previous shows online for free where you get your podcasts from on every available platform, including SoundCloud now, and Spotify is really taking off. If you use Spotify, check out the podcast on Spotify as part of your general streaming malarkey. Just search EV News Daily inside Spotify or SoundCloud or any other app. If I'm missing one, let me know. I'll add it on. If you subscribe for new podcasts, you get them first and free and automatically. catch up on the socials, come and say hi to me by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.